Of the Cattle USA Daily Podcast. Today we are excited to welcome Ryan Moorhouse out of Amarillo and with the Cattlemen's Beef Board, or the Beef Checkoff, onto the podcast today. Today we are talking all things Beef Checkoff, what we have been seeing this year so far. We're going to be talking the impact report that the Beef Checkoff just recently released. And then we are also going to be diving into consumer demand and consumer trends that we have been seeing this year thus far. And then as we go into the rest of the year, we are almost to the halfway point of 2025, which is crazy to say. And we're just going to be talking what we have seen this year so far and what our trends are anticipated for the remainder of the year. So without further ado, let's go ahead and get into this podcast episode with Ryan. Ryan, welcome to the podcast. We are so excited to have you on today to share a little bit more about the Cattlemen's Beef Board, the Beef Checkoff, and everything. I would love it if you could just take it away, share a little bit about yourself and both of those organizations.
Well, thanks for having me on. We certainly appreciate it. Any chance we get to talk about the checkoff and let some listeners and producers know more about it, we'd love to take advantage of those. My name is Ryan Moorhouse. I'm Cattlemen's Beef Board chair this year for the Cattlemen's Beef Board. I grew up in North Central Texas on a cow-calf and stocker operation, and then have spent the last 20 years in the cattle feeding business in the Panhandle of Texas. I still get to do both, still do the cattle feeding and the stocker operation and cow-calf at home. So a little bit of both and enjoy all of it. That's been my livelihood the cattle industry has for my whole career, and really enjoyed it. Cattlemen's Beef Board is basically the beef checkoff, another term people use. And the Cattlemen's Beef Board is made up of producers and importers from all over the country. Basically, the producers and importers are nominated by state and industry organizations, and then they're appointed by the USDA, U.S. Secretary of Agriculture. So basically, you go through the nomination process, and then you're appointed by the Secretary of Agriculture. And basically, they oversee all the beef checkoff dollars at the national level and where they go and what we do with them. So that's kind of the job of the Beef Board. The number of seats per state depends on the cattle population in your state. So obviously, states like Kansas and Nebraska have more seats on the Beef Board in Texas, just because they're cattle-rich states, lots of livestock. And then some of the smaller states, obviously, that don't have hardly any cattle would not necessarily have a spot on the Beef Board. But it's very, very diverse group made up from, all types of producers in industry. And so we get lots of different opinions and thoughts on how to spend checkoff dollars. And that's what we want. That's our goal. So anyway, basically it's funded by producers, $1 per head every time an animal sold, every time a cow, calf, or yearling or fat animal is sold. And that's how the checkoff is funded. And basically the money that we have supports programs in promotion, research, foreign marketing, consumer information, industry information. All of this basically is to build demand for beef. That's our main goal, is to build demand for beef. And so that's what our task is, and that's what we try to do.
Yes, absolutely. Can we talk about the new report and the impact report that just came out recently? I would love it if you could walk us through that. That is a big thing that the Beef Checkoff is here for. And the impact report is awesome. And it's a great tool for producers and everyone alike. So if you could walk us through the impact report, that'd be great.
You bet. So we were looking for something that's easier to digest, and also hits all the high points, and to provide more transparency on where producer checkoff dollars go. So basically, we took the annual report, which we do every year, and combined that with our evaluation reports, which we evaluate all the programs every year. We actually have an evaluation committee that oversees that, and we put it in one product that's hopefully easier to digest for producers, and the format's easy. It basically includes all real results, the performance metrics, a return on investment study we did, the highlights of all the different programs, and then all the research projects that we're working on. You can find it, the place to find it for producers is at drivingdemandforbeef.com, which is the Cattlemen's Beef Board website. It's on there. Again, it's something new we did this year. It's a great report. We've got hard copies as well. If folks want to get them, we'll send them one. It's basically shows people where their checkoff dollars went. And it's a little, the annual report's pretty thick and pretty cumbersome sometimes. So So this has been a great addition to our communications.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I think it just makes it so that you don't have to go through the multiple 100-page document.
Yeah.
And pretty much be like, okay, where, because that's the question so many producers have, right? Where did my money go? What is it going to? And sometimes the checkoff is controversial to people. They don't actually, but most of the time it's because they don't understand what the checkoff is doing, where the dollars are going, and what the impact actually is. So having this easy to digest impact report where you can just see it in nice, pretty graphs, plain language. This is where your money went. This is what it's doing. And these are the results that we saw from that is huge, and huge for producers and consumers alike, because I think a big part of the checkoff and the Cattlemen's Beef Board is your guys' role in consumer demand and driving demand, like you said. And in order to do that, we need to be using our dollars properly. But then as producers, we can then go look at that report and be like, okay, so this is where our focus has been as an industry over the past few months, and how we are continuing to look at that and push that. As far as consumer demand goes, that obviously is a big role that you guys play. Can we talk about how consumers are buying beef these days? What consumer trends are you seeing? Any thoughts that you guys have as far as those go?
You bet. It's crazy times in the beef industry right now. We've got, record wholesale prices in the beef industry. We've got record live prices, record feeder prices. And so most of that is, part of it's attributed to just the supply situation we're in. But, we like to think that all the programs we use in the checkoff helps, put beef at the center of the plate for consumers so that they want our product. They love our product. So demand right now really is at an all-time high. I think fresh beef sales recently topped 40 billion. And so that's really old news. I mean, it's still continuing. I mean, you go to the store now and the prices for beef compared to other proteins is higher, but people are still buying it. And that's a great story to tell and for all producers. What are consumers spending their dollars on? Mostly you see some of the center cuts that are higher priced, obviously in these conditions. Maybe they're looking for something a little cheaper, maybe some cuts that are a little less expensive, less known cuts. And so you're seeing some of that. Also looking for ads, consumers looking for ads. And retailers are great about doing great ads for beef just to get consumers in the door, obviously, so they can buy the other stuff that's not on sale, which is good for us and good for them, I guess. Using a lot of coupons, buying in bulk, things like that, just to cheapen some of the products up. And then I think you've seen, I think restaurant sales have been great, but I think some folks have been cooking at home more. And I think that's a great thing. I think it's a lost art a little bit, knowing how to cook, especially different types of cuts of beef. And that's what we're here for, is to educate people on maybe what cuts of beef to choose if you're on a budget, and then how you cook them and make them good. So the buying is just the first step. Being able to cook it right and enjoy it, that's the second step. And that's what a lot of checkoff dollars are spent on, is to educate folks in that regard.
Yeah, absolutely. And we've been seeing just a bunch of trends move more towards beef, whether it be just generational trends, nutritional trends, TikTok trends, whatever it is. We've been seeing a big push towards just more whole diets, better sustainable proteins, and beef provides that. And so I'm really excited, as someone who's an advocate for the beef industry, to see that trend continue to go that way. Of people, it may be more expensive on the shelves right now, but the demand is still high, and we're going into our halfway point throughout the year, and this is kind of a big turning point, right? We're going into the dog days of summer, but then also summer grilling season is just starting. You and I, right before, we're talking about how summer is here and it is hot and we are feeling it, and we definitely are. And protein is available at such a high rate, and there's so many different protein options available to consumers. Can you talk a little bit about how the Beef Checkoff is specifically targeting beef and beef within consumer trends? How, as we go into the summer grilling season, we are really targeting those consumers?
You bet. So lots of ways, obviously, that we use checkoff dollars in many different ways to target consumers. One of the best and been long running is the beefandwhatsfordinner.com webpage. You can get on there and get new recipes for beef, tips on how to cook it, content that help beef work for you, and things like the versatility in beef. different cuts, how to cook them. And so that's one thing that's been ongoing. Some of the other things it is grilling season, like you mentioned. And so July 4th right around the corner. We've kind of come through some of the beef-centric holidays with Father's Day behind us now and Memorial Day behind us, but we still have the 4th of July ahead of us. And that's obviously a big grilling time, probably the biggest, I believe. And so, NCBA, the National Cattlemen's Beef Association, they kicked off a big grilling campaign, started in May. We start pushing the grilling campaigns with different programs in May. And that's one of the things they did was National Barbecue Month in May. And they showcased, regional barbecue styles, different areas of the country and how they cook barbecue, and obviously beef being the main ingredient we use for those, and did that on a lot of different social media channels. Basically, they went across the country, beef-centric barbecue, how different parts of the country cook it. Some parts in Texas, we like smoky brisket. That's kind of what we're known for. But you get over in the eastern part of the country, and they like their more of a southern-style barbecue, whether it be beef, and sometimes they cook with pork. But different sauces, different things. But pushing beef as a big barbecuing item is the goal. We do this every year, but they did have a big campaign this year, and NCBA did a great job on that. One thing we're looking at is, knowing that people's budgets, different people have different budgets, and what can you work with? Finding different ways to target different consumers, new methods like streaming services is a way we try to get to folks. If you just take out, I have some of the older producers ask me, like, why don't we see any more ads on TV? And I say, you know how much an ad costs on TV for like a 30-second ad it'd be great. And we still do it some, but with the limited dollars we have, we feel like the reach is more now on the digital and the social media and the things like that, which a lot of the older producers don't always participate in, me being one of them. But I still know we do great things with the dollars, and we can stretch them further, doing it that way. So that's one thing, taking the time to get on some of these social media channels and streaming services. One of the things Beef and Sweats for Dinner program did is they leveraged connected TV to reach like 78 million consumers through different placing ads in different live sporting events. They said they think they reached like 3 million viewers in 2.8 million complete video views. So, hey, anytime you can do that with the limited dollars we have, it's great. And we get a chance to throw one on TV occasionally, we might, but it is terribly expensive. So that's definitely something that's tougher to do these days.
Yeah, it definitely is. And it's nice to see like Beef Checkoff dollars going to something that we're not just continuing to do the same thing that we've been doing for a while, because, TV ads worked. They really did when that was the thing to do. But now that we have connected TV and we can do more targeted ads and really push beef in a different way that is reaching the consumers that we need to be reaching right now. And I also appreciate the fact that we are reaching consumers with different price points and budgets, because we want to reach the consumers that can go get a big brisket and go put it on their smoker on just a casual Saturday. But then we also want to reach the consumers that are choosing to get ground beef, because both of those are vital to the beef industry. We need both, and both provide such a great push into beef demand. And so as we go into the second half of 2025, as we're looking at the rest of the year, one of your guys' biggest goals is to continue to drive beef demand. And can you just talk a little bit more about that? What are you guys doing to continue to drive that beef demand?
Well, beef demand, like we've talked about before, is at a 37-year high right now. If you look at all the charts in the long-term charts that people like CattleFacts put out and things, and that's what they do for a living, is track all that, so the information is extremely accurate. So we're pretty excited about where we are as an industry, and especially excited, like we mentioned, that with prices as high as they are, and people still buying beef. It's the best tasting protein out there. We think a lot of it's due to, obviously the product we have, safe product we have. People trust U.S. beef safety inspection programs, and so that's great. So do our folks who we export beef to. They trust it as well. But demand being as high with prices as high it's a little scary, but hopefully we'll keep doing it. The checkoff, basically all the programs between all the consumer-facing demand programs, demand building programs like Beef and What's for Dinner, and then also these social media and the connected TV campaigns, all that stuff we're doing to push to beef. Like for example, so 2024, beef demand was up by 6.7%. And then this is just 24, so we're halfway through 25, and all these numbers are going to be higher, so we can revisit these numbers later. But from 24, fed cattle prices were up 10%, over 10%. Feeder cattle prices up over 17%. That's some things we want the producers to know that help them. That hopefully all the demand building programs will have get back in their pocket, because as you mentioned before, anytime a dollar comes out of somebody's pocket, it gets extremely controversial. Some people like the checkoff, believe in the checkoff, others don't. And I've visited folks from all across the country in my time as an officer on CBB, and it's totally understandable, their thoughts. I like to listen a lot. We like to be very transparent, but it's always controversial. Building this demand when people can see what demand's doing, beef demand's doing, I think sure helps that.
Absolutely. It's our most public facing aspect of the beef industry, right? It's how our consumers are purchasing, how they are viewing the beef industry, and everything that goes along with that. And so often I think it's easy for us as producers to look at those scenarios and situations and remove ourselves from them, because that's not our problem. But it is our problem. And luckily we have organizations like the Beef Checkoff that are handling it for us. Guys do a lot of that work, forward facing, consumer facing work for producers, so that we don't have to be the ones out there at the farmers markets or everything else communicating that. We get to stay on our ranches and do what we do best, and that is raise a really high quality, great tasting protein source. And it is just really cool to be able to see what the Beef Checkoff is doing and how you guys are prioritizing spending dollars, and especially as we go into demand for the rest of the year. So it was really awesome to hear your thoughts, Ryan. I really appreciate that. As we start to close out the podcast, do you have any closing thoughts or comments for our listeners today?
Well, to kind of add on to what you said, it's basically the checkoff allows producers to take a dollar for every head sold, put it in a pool of money, a large pool of money, where you have the dollar amounts are enough to where you can really make a difference. If we had 500 head of cows in the pasture and we took our $500 and tried to go do something with it, I mean, what are we going to do? We're going to go to the local newspaper and take out an ad at promoting beef. I mean, we can do that.
Yeah.
And I don't think there's anything wrong with that. But to get to a national level and to really, I mean, like we talked about what it costs to even have a TV ad these days, you just can't do that. And so being able to pull those dollars together, that's the strength of the checkoff. And to pull those dollars together to promote beef and promote demand, push beef demand, and then do safety research and nutrition research, all of which is a whole nother topic. It really does great things. So closing out, I certainly appreciate your time and the opportunity to be on here and your commitment to the industry. I mean, you're doing the things that producers like me don't want to do. I mean, we don't mind hopping on here and talking a little, but I'm sure not the best at it. And we appreciate folks like you that really reach out in the industry and push beef and the beef industry in general, because that's what we need. We need younger folks that are really committed to doing the work that you're doing. So we appreciate that. Know that the checkoff's working hard for all the producers, and we're here to build demand for beef, and that's really our job, and that's our goals, and it's pretty centric. I mean, that's what we're focused on all the time. Reminder on the impact report: get on drivingdemandforbeef.com, check out that impact report, or give the Cattlemen's Beef Board office a call. We'll mail you a hard copy if you'd rather have that. We're pretty easy, but it's a quick way and an easy way to look at where your checkoff dollars are going. And we try to be very transparent with all that, even though sometimes we're told we're not. But I'm like, it's all right there. You just got to go find it. You got to work a little to find it, but we'll help you any way we can. And I encourage producers to ask questions. Contact Cattlemen's Beef Board, contact a neighbor, or contact anybody would know about the checkoff. Each state has numerous folks sitting on state beef councils, committees, and then we have the National Beef Board. So lots of different opportunities to visit with producers, and encourage you to ask questions. If you got questions, we'll be glad to answer them.
Yes, absolutely. Ryan, thank you so much for your time today. I really appreciate it. And to all of you listeners out there, Everything that Ryan and I chatted about today will be linked down in the show notes. So if you want that impact report, if you want more info on Beef is What's for Dinner, if you want more info on anything else that we talked about, I will have all of that linked down below for you to check out yourself and to go dive into further. And as always, make sure you like, subscribe, rate, review, share with a friend. We appreciate it here at the team and hope you guys have a great rest of your day. Thanks for tuning in to another episode of the Cattle USA Daily Podcast. Have a good one, y'all.